بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intention and the good comprehension. Allahumma ameen. Today we will start talking about a sin that was said to be the first sin by which Allah the Exalted was disobeyed in paradise, and the first sin by which Allah the Exalted was disobeyed on earth, and it is Al-Hasad, envy. Dear sisters and brothers, Allah the Exalted has made it ingrained in the nature of human beings that a person would dislike or hate for anyone of his kind to surpass him in any virtue. Then after that, people differ. Amongst them is the one who strives to attain what others have without wishing for it, that endowment, to be removed from them. Yani, amongst them are those who strive to attain what others have of endowments without wishing for those endowments to be removed from the ones whom Allah granted, from the ones who have that endowment. And this is called 𝗬𝗃𝘃𝘁, and there is no harm in it. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا حسد إلا في اثنتين رجل آتاه الله مالا فسلطه على هلكته في الحق ورجل آتاه الله حكمة فهو يقضي بها ويعلمها للناس. This hadith means that al-ghibta is something that is praiseworthy, and the Prophet mentioned two matters. He said it's praiseworthy in two matters, meaning he's mentioning two examples. He said a man whom Allah has given wealth and he uses it in righteous causes, and a man whom Allah has given wisdom, meaning knowledge, and he judges by it and teaches it to the people. So what does this hadith mean? The Prophet ﷺ clarified for us two matters in which al-ghibta is praiseworthy. Al-ghibta in those two matters is a good thing. And what is al-ghibta? Al-ghibta means that a person wishes to have an endowment, a blessing, similar to that which his believing brother has. So if I see an endowment with my brother or my sister, if I see an endowment with my brother or my sister in Islam, I supplicate to Allah Ta'ala and I wish to have the same as what this believer has, without that blessing being removed from that Muslim. I don't, Then this here is not prohibited envy. Rather, it is called ghibta, which is something that is praiseworthy. And in this meaning, the hadith that we mentioned earlier was reported, in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا حسد إلا في اثنتين. Literally, it says, there is no hasad, which might be translated as envy. In this context, someone might translate that as envy, except in two matters, the Prophet said. The first one is, رَجُلٌ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا فَسَلَّطَهُ عَلَى هَلَكَتِهِ فِي الْحَقِّ. A man whom Allah has given wealth, and he uses it in righteous causes. It means a person who has lawful wealth, halal wealth, and he spends it in the avenues of goodness. He builds masjids, for example. He constructs buildings that aid the Muslims, such as hospitals, clinics, and the like. And he spends his wealth on the poor, and he gives charity to the needy. So if a Muslim sees this wealthy man who is spending his wealth left and right, bil-haqq, that is, he is distributing it in the avenues of goodness, and he feels al-ghibta for that believer, then his ghibta here is something good. It's not something blameworthy. He sees something that another Muslim has, an endowment, and he's happy for that Muslim, and he wishes that he can have something like that too. This is al-ghibta, and there is nothing wrong in it. And as for the Prophet calling al-ghibta hasad, which literally one would translate as envy, in this hadith, then that is metaphorical. Because al-ghibta is not the prohibited hasad. It's not the prohibited envy. As for the second matter that is mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in which al-ghibta is praiseworthy, it is what he sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, وَرَجُلٌ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ حِكْمَةً فَهُوَ يَقْضِي بِهَا وَيُعَلِّمُهَا لِلنَّاسِ. He said, a man whom Allah has given knowledge, and so he judges by it, and he teaches it to the people. Meaning that this is someone to whom Allah the Exalted has granted knowledge, the religious knowledge. And so he judges with this Islamic knowledge, he gives fatwa with it, and he teaches it to others. So if one of us sees a man from the people of knowledge, for example, teaching people the religious knowledge, striving to spread goodness and knowledge amongst them, and he feels al-ghibta, he wishes that he had knowledge like that believer, then this is praiseworthy, and it is not the prohibited envy. As we mentioned, amongst the people are those who, when they see a blessing or an endowment upon their believing brother or sister, they wish to have something like them. This is al-ghibta, as we discussed, and it is neither something blameworthy nor is it prohibited. And then you have people, or let's say amongst the people are those, on the other hand, who wish for the removal of an endowment from their believing brother or sister. Yet they do not strive for that, nor do they intend firmly to remove it from them. That is, they do not act upon that feeling that they find within themselves, that heaviness that they have in their heart due to seeing another Muslim having an endowment, they don't act upon it. They feel it, but they don't let it lead them to doing something to removing that endowment from that Muslim. This is also a type of envy, a type of hasad. However, it is not prohibited. Even though this person wishes for the removal of that endowment from his believing brother, he does not strive for that, nor does he act upon what he finds within himself of heaviness towards his brother's endowment. So, is he considered sinful? Does he fall into a sin? The scholars said he is not considered sinful because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا حَسَدْتَ فَلَا تَبْغِ, which means, if you feel envy, do not transgress. This means, if you see an endowment upon your believing brother or sister in Al-Islam, and you find it heavy on yourself, you get that heaviness in the chest for them having this endowment and you don't have something like that, and you wish it was yours instead, up to this point, the person is not sinful. Up to this point, the person is not sinful. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, إِذَا حَسَدْتَ فَلَا تَبْغِ, if you feel envy, do not transgress. Meaning, do not act upon this wish. Because many people, they find it hard seeing an endowment upon their brother that they themselves do not have. They see something that they like, something good, that they themselves do not have. But their brother or their sister in Islam has it. They themselves do not have it, but their sister in Islam, for example, has it. Allah the Exalted has made it ingrained in the souls and natures of humans that a person would hate being surpassed or outshone or outshun, as they say here in the UK, by others. Yani, seeing another Muslim shine brighter than them through a blessing or endowment that Allah gave them, it's a matter that most humans strongly dislike, and they find it very heavy on their heart. This is how most of the people are. It's very rare to find someone who doesn't feel that heaviness at the endowment that another Muslim has. Subhanallah. Most of the people, this is how they are. Allah made it ingrained in the self of the person. It's in their nature. But if a person does not act upon this heaviness, they don't act upon that feeling that they have, they hate the endowment of another. They don't like it. But if they don't act upon that, then they are not sinful. When does he become sinful? When does that sin get recorded against him? It is when he strives to remove that endowment from his believing brother, or she strives in any way to remove that blessing from her believing sister, for example. So, beloved sisters and brothers, this blameworthy hasad, or the envy, the sinful envy, it is when, if the matter were in your hands and left to your choice, and you had a way, that is, you had some type of means to remove that endowment from that one that is envied, then you would strive to do so, and you would employ that means that you have. However, if in this situation, the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal prevents you from acting upon that heaviness and stops you from doing so, then this is not the prohibited envy. And Al-Hasad, envy, is a major sin in some of its forms, but not in all of its forms. The prohibited hasad, envy, is hating the endowment of another Muslim upon them that Allah granted them, and finding it heavy for that Muslim to have that endowment, and striving to remove it from him. Striving to remove it from him in any way. It might be by saying something to get him to lose that endowment. It might be by doing something to get him to lose that endowment. Meaning, if a believer sees an endowment upon another, such as his brother having lawful wealth, or his brother having a beautiful wife, or a spacious home, or a successful job, and this believer hates for his Muslim brother to have that endowment, and he finds it heavy on his heart that his brother has it, and so he says, why was that given to him? Why does he have that and I don't? I wish it were mine instead. This is called Al-Hasad, envy. So this is a type of envy. However, it becomes sinful when he acts upon these feelings that he has. So up to here, what did the scholars say? The scholars said that up to here, the only one that is being harmed really, or the only one that is experiencing any distress, is the one who is envying. Because it's so heavy on his heart to see the endowment upon another Muslim. Every time they see that Muslim, they feel this heaviness in their heart. Subhanallah, because they believe that Muslim is better than them, for example, in something. Or that this Muslim is better than their child, for example. And so they envy them. But as long as they do not act upon that heaviness, as long as they do not strive to remove the endowment from that Muslim, then they have not reached the prohibited envy, the prohibited hasad. However, if he acts upon that, and he strives to remove that endowment from the Muslim, he becomes sinful. Let us mention some examples of that. Some people may be given lawful wealth by Allah. Allah the Exalted increased them in the halal money, and so they had a lot of halal wealth. Then some people see them and they see this endowment upon that Muslim, and they find it hard on their nafs. They find it hard on their self to bear, and they find it heavy on their heart. some people would feel anguish in their heart even. They would feel a lot of pain. Some people, they look at the endowment of another and they feel a lot of pain in their heart, subhanAllah. They start thinking, why does so-and-so have this wealth while I do not? I wish it were mine. I wish it would be removed from him and it would come to me. Up to this point, this person has not reached the prohibited hasad, the prohibited envy. But if, for example, he strives to remove that blessing from that believer, such as stealing his wealth, or stealing some of it, or striving to destroy that wealth by burning it, for example. Or, as some people do today, they send someone to ruin that person's wealth. Then this is the prohibited hasad. This is the haram envy that we're talking about. And remember that wealth is not just currency. It's not just dollars and notes. Rather, it is your possessions, which may include cars and houses, land, and other than that. So this is the wealth. At times, people would send someone to burn someone's house, subhanAllah, or to burn their land because they envy them for having more land than them, for example. And that burning in their chest, it leads them to doing something, acting upon it, and subhanAllah, that's when they fall into the sin. Likewise, if the believer has, let's say, a very beautiful wife, and this person, he wants this endowment to be removed from his brother. He looks at his brother in Islam and he sees that his brother has a beautiful wife and he finds it heavy in his heart. Why does he have her? How did he get her? And so he starts speaking to her in a way to try and make her grow distant from her husband. And he says things like, for example, you don't know him. He has such and such faults. He is not as good-natured as you think, nor are his manners as good as you think. Trust me, I know his past. I know such and such about him. 𝗬𝗪. Why does he tell her these things? He says these things to her so that she would hate her husband and leave him, and then turn to him. And subhanAllah, and this happens. And this is another example of the prohibited hasad, the haram envy. And you can think about other examples in your mind. Subhanallah, people strive in different ways that may be less than this, or maybe more than that, to try and get a Muslim to lose an endowment that they have. So this person who does this action has committed the forbidden envy. May Allah protect us from that. Allahumma ameen. And we mention another example as well. Some people, for instance, they may see that their believing brother has a successful business. So they see this brother succeeding in something. He is successful in a particular matter, for example, something that Allah gave him. whether that be a certain job or in a certain profession, or like he owns a store, for example, and the customers of his store are many. Many people seek out that store specifically. And he finds that they gather around this person or around his store. So when he sees that, he gets distressed and he hates that endowment upon his brother. So what does he do? It pushes him towards something. And this doesn't happen for everyone, because a person might feel that, as we mentioned earlier, and stop right there. And not let that feeling push them to say anything or do anything that harms that other Muslim. But for some people, that feeling that they have is too strong and it overpowers them because they are weak. And they got used to giving in to their nafs when it calls them to evil. And so what does he do in this situation? He goes to those people that are gathering around his store, for example, and he begins speaking falsely and slanderously about that Muslim, about that owner of the store, for example. And he says that this person is deceiving you in his work. Or that, for example, you have no idea, but he actually does not sell original merchandise. His merchandise is not genuine. He's actually selling you counterfeit goods. All of this is a lie. All of which is a lie. But he strives, because of that feeling that he had and hating that endowment upon the Muslim, he strives in any way to try to stop that endowment. This is also considered prohibited envy. This is haram. So as you can see, beloved sisters and brothers, envy, Al-Hasad, is a disease and a calamity that consumes a person's heart. And this is to the extent that many people remain in anxiety and distress due to their envy towards their brothers in Al-Islam. There are many people that live like that day to day. They live with anxiety in their hearts and distress and heavy feelings due to the envy that they have towards their brothers and sisters in Islam when they see, for example, an endowment upon them that they wish they had or they wish their family members have. And this should not be the case. The believers are brothers, as Allah the Exalted said in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Indeed, the believers are brothers. We ask Allah Ta'ala to protect our hearts from all ailments and diseases, including Al-Hasad, envy. Ameen. And we ask Allah the Exalted to make us amongst the grateful, thankful slaves of Allah for all of the endowments that we have. Allahumma ameen. And insha'Allah ta'ala, we'll continue with part 2 in the next class.